Hello, everyone. Welcome to TCI. My name is JB, and it's a true honor to come to you today in this message. We've been on a series for a while, and we're going to continue on this until we get through this life of this man named King David. And David was the second king of the modern day country of Israel. And as the second king, he went through a lot. We've learned from the previous messages, and we're not going to recap them right now. But we left off last week where David had been in the caves of Adullam, right, with his strong men, which was over 400, which of course had wives and children. And so, depending on who you listen to, between 1 and 2,000 people, that David, who was on the run for his life, now had to not only take care of his family, but he had all these 400 other families. 400, every strong man was a family. So there's 400 families. As a leader, he was not king yet, right? He did not have the title of king by the man. He had the title of king by the priest who came and said, God told him, you'll be the next king. So he became the leader when? Did he become the leader when he became king, or did he become the leader early on? And this is what we're going to kind of discover and kind of talk about today. And so now the king of Israel, the first one, was Saul, and his son and all of his sons, they're all dead. They got killed in the battle. So they're dead. David finds this out. He reeks his clothes off. Most people, if you were pursued by your enemy, which in this case was King Saul, the king of Israel, he had been pursuing David for, in essence, about 10 to 12 years. That he actually chased him to try to kill him over and over. And this was his number one warrior and general. This was his son-in-law, his son, his eldest son's best friend. They were closer than even brothers. And so he's going after him. And he finds out because someone runs in and says, hey, David, Saul's dead. Yes. You're no longer having to... And he ripped his clothes and he wailed and he cried. And everyone's like, we're confused. Well, what? Aren't you excited? No. See, David never wanted to see his enemy because it wasn't his enemy. David was truly a real leader. And so I want us to look at this. And as we look at the Road to Zion 2.0, the whole concept is how do we rule and reign our lives, our kingdom? So how do you rule and reign your life? Well, you do that by ruling in the fields of others. In the beginning of my years, I had to toil in the fields of other men's. The fields are their businesses. The fields are someone else's vision and dream. And so I have a vision and dream, but I'm young. I don't know everything yet. So I need to learn. And you don't just get that for free. You got to go put effort in. And so you would find a person to apprentice with, and you would serve them in their dream and their vision, and they teach you all these tricks so that at some point you get to move on to your own and be your own master of whatever that job was, or that industry or that specific trade was. So David, when did he become king? We talked about this last week. He became king in a field of shit when he was a teenage boy. Yeah. That's when he actually became the leader. But his title came when he was 30. So as we look at this, how to rule and then rule in someone else's field, how do we rule ourselves in someone else's field? And when you're in that field of poo, right, and we're covered in it, that's when the real lessons are. And there's no one else around to see it. They don't see that we're covered in poo. They don't see that we're chasing the one sheep that keeps wandering off. They don't see that we had to break that backbone of that sheep's little tiny ankle bone to stop it from wandering off, because it's so hard to do that. But in doing so, you've trained this sheep to not do this, and it will save the sheep's life down the road. These are hard lessons this young man learned. And then when bears and lions came to kill his sheep, you know what he did? He did what all shepherds at that time did. They killed the bear and the lion with their bare hands. They had slings, which David killed a giant with one rock. So when you look at what these weapons a sling could do, yeah, they could take a bear out, absolutely. And they have taken animals out. But he also had daggers, he had a spear, a staff. He fought an animal like that, a beast, with his own hands. And won. And so here's this warrior, and he's in this field of poo, and he's doing this for not even his own financial gain in all respect. He's not. It's his father's sheep. It's his father's herd. Okay? But see, in that herd and in those sheep that his father gave him, to whom much is given, much is required. So David was given this herd, and he's probably complaining, well, I got 7 brothers, and those 7 brothers, man, they sure having fun. No, he didn't. He said, I will do my best with what I am given. So in 2 Samuel chapter 5, and I'll read it for you. I'm going to briefly, and I forgot my glasses, so forgive me as I look like an old man doing this. Chapter 5, and it was verse 3 here. It says, therefore all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, as King David, thank you for the glasses, and made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord. So David was then anointed king over Israel. So again, I ask you, did David become king in 2 Samuel chapter 5 when Saul died and all of the Israel leaders came and said, you're the king? Or was he made that leader back in the fields with poo? And I think you know. Because let's flip back real quick. Let's go back to the first book of Samuel, chapter 16. And it says in verse 7, but the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature. So don't look at the man or woman on the outside. Because I've refused the guy and the gal because they're perfect. They look great. They have no fat cells. Their skin is no blemishes. They don't have pimples. They don't have blue hair. They don't have earrings hanging out of their ears. They don't have tattoos. They don't look like some mean beast. They're looking for the perfect person. No. He said, do not look at the appearance or at physical stature. This is God saying this. For God says, I do not see as man sees. For man looks at the outer appearance. But God looks at my heart, at your heart. You see, David had no one to impress in the field. David had to survive. So he didn't have a choice. If he didn't kill the animals, the beasts that were trying to take his flocks, he loses the flock and his life pretty much comes to an end because that's all their proceeds from that business. Or worse, he loses his life too. This is a fight moment and there is no other option. It's called burn the bridges. I have to win this fight or I die. I've been in those fights physically. I can promise you. There's a reason I'm alive. My desire to live was stronger than the other person. And that's what David did, right? His desire to live was greater than the bear's desire to eat him. How bad's your desire? How bad is your desire? This kid is a teenager when this happens, by the way. And then it says when this statement was made, right? God tells us the guy who's supposed to find the next king, he says, give me your boys. Bring them before me. Let me see them all. So he gives them the top 7, the eldest 7. He leaves the 8th one off. He just brings them all in. He didn't say, this is all my kids. He said, bring the boys in. Bring the 7 in. So he brought in his 7 best. The best looking. The best sounding. The one that can just look at you and raise the eyebrow and, ooh, baby, you're like, whoa. The other one that all the men want to be like because he's just physically fit. And the other one that all the women are like, oh, you know, every one of those brothers came through and nope, because they had shit in their heart. You're like, dang, that's pretty cold. No, God's looking at the heart. If you're just trying to be this sexy, beautiful, strong, this fake, phony, that's not going to get you to become the king and to rule and reign in this world in your life. You have to be honest. You have to be authentic. You have to work in the fields with poo. And in doing that, your heart is purified. It's a fire process. When you want to melt something, I have a sword here. The sword is made, it is Damascus steel. This is just around 400, just over 400 years old. And I don't know if you can see the quality of this, but this is 400 years old, and the workmanship on this blade, this is called the executioner's blade. This thing is magnificent, but it has to go through the fire. They had to purge all the impurities out of the metal. They had to purify, folding these different kinds of processes. And every sword in every country does their own purging process of how the master folds the metals, or different styles of metals are done different ways. But the process is all the same. It's a purifying process. So David's working in the fields in Pooh. So we're here, and all the brothers were refused. And then what happens, and of course I lost my glasses. So now Samuel says it's none of these guys, because that's just the outer stuff. So he sent for his last child, and he was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. He wasn't the best looking. He wasn't the tallest, nor the eldest, nor the strongest. He was ruddy. He was good looking. And he was a boy. And he was the leader. In the field, when he led the sheep, when no one else was watching, he became a king. See, the principles that you learn, I just went through a transformation conference with a lot of my leadership. And all of us have this massive moment in the conference where we all had a shift in our life, in our core. And I want you to understand this. When the shift occurs, you have two options. The shift can kill you, or it will progress you forward, upwards in a positive direction, but it can also snuff you out if you allow it to. It's going to happen. It's going to shift. And once you are given the secret, once I tell you the secret, and you know the secret, and then you don't do the secret, it'll kill you. And so we had this choice. We had to change. We all discovered things about our habits that were actually some hidden habits we didn't know about. And there was a shift.